Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to perform, well, an autopsy on the birth of the atomic age. We're going to look at the minutes, the secret decisions, and the hidden costs that literally shoved humanity into a new and honestly a terrifying new chapter.
You really can't start this story anywhere else. That quote from J. Robert Oppenheimer himself, the father of the atomic bomb, it just hangs in the air, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the immense, world-shattering weight of what they were about to do. So let's go right to the sharp end of the spear. Picture it. It's August 6th, 1945. We're inside the B-29 superfortress, the Enola Gay, and it's on its final approach. Down below, the city of Hiroshima is completely oblivious to the fact that their world is about to end. And what's so wild is just how methodical it all was. At 7:15 in the morning, the weather plane radios in, "Skies are clear." By 8 a.m., the crew is saying their final prayers because, they had no idea if they'd even survive the blast themselves. And then right at 8:15 a.m., the bombardier nails the target, the Ioi Bridge, and the bomb is released. The world had just 43 seconds left. The second that bomb, little boy, is away, Colonel Paul Tibbets throws the Enola Gay into the sharpest, most aggressive turn of its life. He's redlining the engines, trying to outrun the very weapon they just unleashed. It's an impossible race against physics. At 1,900 feet above the city, detonation. A flash of light so bright it defies description. The tail gunner, Sergeant Bob Karen, was the only person on that plane who could actually see it happen. And his words, "A peep into hell," crackling over the radio, that's the first human account of a nuclear attack. A few moments later, the shockwave hits the plane so hard they think they're taking fire. As they look back, they see it. A monstrous, terrifying mushroom cloud boiling up to 40,000 feet. And a stunned silence just falls over the crew until one of them asks that haunting question. And really, that's the big question for all of us, isn't it? How on earth did we get here? To even begin to answer that, we have to rewind the clock. We need to look at this frantic, top-secret race to build a weapon that, up until this point, was basically just science fiction. So it all started with a scientific breakthrough. Back in '39, scientists who had fled Nazi Germany figured out that splitting an atom could unleash an unbelievable amount of energy. Then Pearl Harbor happened, and that theory suddenly became an urgent military necessity. By late '42, the Manhattan Project was officially a go, and just a few months after that, a guy named Enrico Fermi proved it was all possible by creating the first ever nuclear chain reaction underneath a football stadium in Chicago. Yeah, seriously. But here is where the story takes a truly terrifying turn. As they were building this thing, some of the scientists' own calculations suggested there was a small but not zero chance that the explosion could ignite the planet's atmosphere, a chain reaction that would literally set the entire world on fire. They were almost sure it wouldn't happen. Almost. They rolled the dice anyway. And, gambling with the fate of the planet, that wasn't the only cost that was buried deep in the project's files. The race for the bomb had a really dark underbelly, and it was built on sacrifices that people were forced to make. For instance, to get the land they needed for plutonium production, the US government just took it, almost 600 square miles. Thousands of American citizens were given just 3 months to pack up and leave their homes forever. And the Wanapum people? They were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands, land they had lived on for generations. For the people in charge, it was all just a small, necessary price to pay. And so, finally, the moment of truth arrived, out in the middle of the New Mexico desert, July 16th, 1945. They called the device the Gadget. A flash so bright, it lit up mountains 10 miles away, followed by a roar that seemed to shake the world. The test was a success. The monster was real. But here's the thing. You can't detonate the world's first atomic bomb without people noticing. So when civilians started calling in reports of a massive explosion, what did the government do? They put out this press release. They said an ammunition magazine had exploded. It was a flat-out, calculated lie, corporate-grade gaslighting to hide what they had really done. So now they knew it worked, and the attacks were set in motion. And while the Hiroshima mission was one of grim, terrifying precision, the mission to drop the second bomb just 3 days later was, it was a complete and utter disaster from start to finish. I mean, just look at this cascade of failures. The main target, Kukura, was covered in smoke. The plane, boxcar, circled for 45 minutes, just burning through fuel, before finally giving up and heading to the backup target, Nagasaki. But Nagasaki was covered in clouds too. They were almost out of fuel, about to abort the mission, when the bombardier saw a tiny last-second break in the clouds and just dropped the bomb miles off target. It was a mission defined by pure chaos.
The result of these bombings, both the meticulously planned one and the chaotic one, was something truly horrific. For tens of thousands of people, their entire existence was just erased, wiped out in a single blinding flash, leaving almost nothing behind, except for a shadow.
And I mean that literally. This is one of the most haunting things to come out of this. The heat from the blast was so intense that it bleached concrete and stone. But if a person was standing there, their body would absorb the heat, shielding the ground right underneath them. What was left was a permanent dark imprint on the pavement, a nuclear shadow, etched into the rock at the exact moment they were vaporized. The bombs worked. The war was finally going to end. But what rose from the ashes was a brand new world, a world that would now live under the shadow of a brand new fear, one that defines us to this day. Faced with 2 vaporized cities and the looming threat of a Soviet invasion, the Japanese government finally accepted unconditional surrender. And on August 15th, for the very first time in history, the people of Japan actually heard the voice of their emperor on the radio, telling them the war was over. So, how was this justified? To this day, it's fiercely debated. But for President Truman and his advisors, it came down to a kind of terrible, grim math. Dropping the bombs killed around 200,000 people, but they argued it prevented a full-scale land invasion of Japan, which military planners thought could lead to as many as 4 million casualties. And that brings us right here to the final, lingering question. The atomic age was born in a flash of light that ended the deadliest war in human history. The question it left behind, the one we are all still grappling with, is pretty simple. What's it going to take to make sure the same power doesn't end the world itself?